Hi there, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this webinar. So this is a webinar that is something that we come across a lot actually, and it holds a lot of truisms and also a little bit of irony at the same time. And it's the fact that builders are so good at sort of building and fixing things, yet they, except for their own business, they can't sort of get control of some of those moving parts. But we believe with a little bit of help that they can build and sustain these great businesses, and that can ultimately help reduce the stress and admin by running a better business. So today, I'm not just today, but I'm David Falconer. I'm the General Manager and Co-founder of Next Minute. So look, we've got a real specific view on looking at this builder and trade niche, as well as working alongside bookkeepers and accounting professionals and advisors to help work alongside their clients. Prior to Next Minute, I spent about 15 years in the SaaS and corporate enterprise space, helping businesses basically improve by using technology. What I found was really interesting with that is that within those very large businesses, the same basic processes and systems still exist that these smaller businesses have. You've got profit and loss, you've got productivity, dealing with staff, costs, but within the smaller trade building type businesses, it's a far more intimate experience. And what I mean by that is you can go in there and make some small changes that have really large beneficial outcomes. In the building and industries and trade industry space, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of businesses out there who are running really good businesses, but they're ready to take that next step. And they've often been very slow to, I guess, pick up and adopt what I'd say digital technology as opposed to just technology. So I guess the whole point of this session today is to, I guess, get the news out there that Next Minute is a tool that's here to help as part of that process. And as part of this presentation, I'm joined here today with Emily Mason, who has recently joined the Next Minute team, and is based in Australia. So Emily, you want to please give us a bit of background on who you are and where you've come from?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Dave. So I started my working career in a bookkeeping firm. I wasn't a bookkeeper as such. I did the customer service operations side of things. After that, I worked there for 4 years, and then that was acquired by an accounting firm. So I've also worked in an accounting firm as well. And then the last 4 years, I worked at Spotlight Reporting, which was another SaaS provider on Xero and MYOB add-on. So I kind of have both aspects of what kind of what the user and the end goal needs to be to help the bookkeepers, but then also worked in that kind of SaaS environment and understand what we need to do from a software perspective.
Brilliant. So why don't you tell us a bit about Next Minute and what it is?
Yeah, cool. So Next Minute is essentially a job management software. It's designed for builders and tradies so that you guys can run, or your clients can run better businesses on the go. It's designed to be kind of a digital tool belt. So obviously trades need their tools to run a successful business, and in the background they need their digital tool belt. So we want to kind of sit alongside the other tools that you might be using already. So your likes of Xero and MYOB, you might be using Dext and HubDoc, those kind of things. So we want to try and make that a smoother process. And just kind of like anything else, quality data in is going to be quality data out, and we want to kind of help with streamlining that process. And because of our great integrations, we can.
So look, Next Minute has been around for a wee while. I've been in the business for approximately 5 years, or when it was founded. And our actual founder, and this is the story, he was doing a really large renovation on his home at the time, and he had builders and plumbers and electricians and the like all on site. And I guess what was the most interesting observation he had was how much time he had to spend chasing up these tradies just to get them to send him an invoice. And then when he did get them, they were inaccurate, paper-based, or just messy and late. And so he queried them as, why are you doing this and what's going on? And basically they said that there was nothing really on the market that suited their needs, and they just really didn't have the time to think about doing anything else. So that was really the genesis of it, because Simon thought, well, here's a developer, surely this is something that can be done in the next minute, rather than weeks and months. So along the way, the product was developed alongside a lot of our builders and trade clients. We also had a partnership with a large trade supplier, so we had a really good, intimate working relationship to help formulate those really key customer-focused functions. Then on top of that, we worked closely with the partners community, and really what that did was allow us to glue in those other pieces of the process that fit alongside the day-to-day activities of the builder. And that really enabled us to now create a really nice integrated ecosystem to sit alongside the other tools that are in use. So more recently, we've really been just in growth mode, and that's from a product perspective. So there's a lot of new product elements that are coming out. So if you've seen us or heard about us a year ago, there's been a lot of new things that have come out the door, a lot more coming out this year. Australia's been a rapid growth for us. We've got a dedicated partner manager with Emily over there, and we've kicked off expansion into the UK. So this is the kind of the early days of the story. Can't wait to tell you about where we're at in another couple of years. Now, look, what I wanted to do is start with this piece here, because I touched on the fact that builders and tradies have historically been slow to adopt digital technology. And I made the distinction because they're actually really, really good at adopting technology. In fact, I would argue they would be, one of the best. They are constantly evolving and picking up new technology and tools to help them with their business. So we talk about this, and I guess the key thing is we need to help them understand that their phone, their mobile phone and apps are another tool for the job. So when you're out there talking to different builders or traders, and I think this is just a couple of points that I've used in the past. So there used to be a handsaw. They used to go and saw their wood, and then along came circular saws or skill saws and handhold saws. And when those bits of technology turned up, they were heavy, they were expensive, slow to set up, but they were adopted because they improved the business. And you wouldn't find a building site out there right now that doesn't have this going, and in fact, you'd be left in the dust. So the same thing can be seen with a really simple one with hammers and a nail gun. So everything used to be done in manual nailing, so all the framing, everything. Now, there's no way you go onto a building site now and see the framing going up and someone walking around hammering in those nails. And once again, when the nail gun came out as a piece of technology, it was new. It was, again, expensive. They had to figure out how to use it and adopt it. They then had to get the rest of their team on it and using it in a consistent way. But again, once again, it just was very smooth and transitioned in. And now you just would not see a site without the use of nail guns. And really, when you boil that down, it's about the ability for them to improve their productivity, get a better outcome, and reduce the manual interventions, and probably makes things a little bit safer. So they have been notoriously slow at adopting software, but I think these better businesses can be run by us helping them get educated on how they can use digital technologies in the same way that they use these other technologies to help run their business. So Emily, based on some of your experience from working with the bookkeepers and advisor practices, what's kind of been done to date to help them get their, I guess, those first building blocks set up for them to help improve their businesses?
Yeah, so I think like with bookkeepers, advisors, anyone kind of in that cloud accounting space now, you would have seen over the last few years, there's been a heap of change around technology. So kind of, similar to when we were talking about the tools that tradies used to have that were quite manual, they also would have just been writing things on pieces of paper and putting them in a pocket somewhere or in the glove box of their car. But over time, all of that's developed. So we've had Xero come along as one of the main cloud accounting softwares, and with that came the Open API. And that's introduced us to all these other technologies that have kind of helped lay the foundations of business that the trades probably didn't really understand how to do themselves. And similarly with MYOB now as well, they've opened up their API and they've got lots of cloud products that are available. So, you've got things like Receipt Bank or Dex, sorry, I should say, HubDoc, to allow for the receipts to be captured. They then feed into the accounting software. You're going to have payroll and timesheet softwares. All of that kind of stuff is captured, allowing you guys out there to kind of do that basic foundation work. So I guess that kind of leads into the next part of, how can you help them make their digital tool belt a bit bigger with something like Next Minute?
Yeah, and look, that's the thing is, I take my hat off to anyone who's helped some of these trade clients shift from boxes and boxes of paper and stuff flying around to that first step into that, I guess, paperless world. And again, that's why I do talk about is that's a real foundation to being able to add in the next piece. And I guess what we're seeing is, Next Minute is the next piece. And I guess we understand how builders and tradies work. They are doing hard physical work a lot of the time, often very long hours. And so they need to have access to what they need, when they need it, and where they need it. They need all their tools in their van and their ute when they get on site. And this is just another one of those tools. So I guess at a starting point, what we need to look for in a product that they're going to need is something that is, I guess, got a very seamless and easy to use mobile app. So that's both for iOS and Android. So you're not constraining them to have to go one way or the other. It needs to work across both. And that makes things very easy and flexible. Given the way that they staff, they've got people coming and going quite a bit of the time. That's definitely going to simplify how that works. Next, they need to also be able to transition their life from working on site into their office where they, maybe having to produce, or finalize quotes or get their invoicing checked and done or check over the team's payroll. So it needs to work really nicely and smoothly across all of those. And so that's an interface that's going to be something that's simple. So obviously, Emily, that sometimes it's just the simple stuff that's the most useful. So what are some of the fundamental building blocks that Next Minute offers?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to job management, it needs to be everything from, the actual job card itself, somewhere to record, customer information, what the job's about, any notes or any photos that might be relevant that are just going to be kind of that admin organizing section of it. From there, your quotes are probably the most important thing. And then that needs to feed into timesheets and recording of the tasks or tasks into timesheets and then invoicing all of that back to the customer. So it all needs to be kind of rounded up and put into what we're calling this online filing cabinet. So it's super easy and functional to just find everything that you need all in one spot. And whether it's from a phone or an iPad or a computer, as you said, it needs to kind of fit the mold of what a tradie's work life looks like. And they're a bit of a digital nomad, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's about getting all of those things in one place. And I guess, that's really important. And I mean, that's the whole principle of the cloud is getting the stuff into one spot and connecting it in with the other applications that you have. But just as importantly, you need to have the confidence that you're giving out the appropriate level of access to the different people in your business so that you know that they get to see and do just what they need to. So it's so with Next Minute, we've got a very powerful and highly configurable set of roles that you can adjust, create on the fly, and then assign out to your different staff members. And I guess what that gives you is that full control to know that your apprentice has that, that pinhole view into the system to see just the jobs they're working on and maybe just a timesheet. And then you can scale that all the way through to the likes of a project manager or a site foreman who may need to be able to create jobs and review quotes and assign staff and everywhere in between. And I guess having the ability and the confidence that you can show and hide is good from a security perspective, but from a change management perspective, it makes rolling out Next Minute really simple. Because if you're just going out to a team member and saying, hey, here's your phone, download the app, you've got your jobs, all you need to do is timesheet, that takes a couple of minutes for them to get up and running on that. And that's a really important part of that transition from maybe paper or manual processes through into using a tool. with all that, I guess the hygiene of the jobs and the tracking of that information, that's really important stuff. But ultimately, the reason why they've got jobs in the building is because they go out there and win the work. Now, it's a pretty competitive landscape out there. Yes, there's lots of building work going on, but you want to be winning the right type of work, and not only just winning it, you want to be knowing that you're going to be making money on it, and that's a really key piece. So what we do is we allow for the templating of quotes. You can go from very, very simple, fast, lean quotes to quickly get a job underway, all the way through to an elaborate quote with all the sections broken down and all the corresponding costs sitting underneath that. What that then allows the builder to do is then ensure that at the point when they are issuing that quote out to the customer, A, it looks professional, it's all neat and tidy, but B, they understand the true cost at that point in time. And then they also know what their profitability is, or theoretical profitability is, at the time when they issue that quote. So they can then send the quote out to the customer directly from the app, accept or decline it. That's going to trigger back, and then they can actually get on with doing the job, which is actually the bit that they enjoy the most. So removing that repetitive manual-based approach to quoting and having standardized templates and I guess quick starting points is a really effective way to get out there and win more profitable jobs. Now, once you've won the job, that's great. As I said, this is the bit that basically they enjoy the most, which is the doing of the job. But with doing any job, you've got a plan for success. And that's as simple as understanding all the different moving parts and how they connect. So what we allow the builders to do is to come in and take their jobs and break them down into their corresponding tasks, and then create dependencies against those different tasks so that they can understand what's the impact when things move or shift. They can come in here and create new tasks very quickly and easily and assign them out on the fly, all from the same interface. And that way, everybody knows what's going on. Team members are scheduled and up to date. They can get on and do the doing with less of this, I guess, administrative overhead to conduct the jobs. So this is a really important piece. So they're not just viewing this from a singular job. They can view all of their jobs across their business and make judgment calls on how things should be laid out based on all those different dependencies over time. So Emily's favorite topic is coming up. This is timesheeting, and this is really where the time and dollars start to come in as part of getting these jobs done.
Yep, timesheets, I absolutely love them, only because when I worked in a bookkeeping firm, it was one of the banes of my existence. There was always something that went wrong with timesheets because 8 years ago, a lot of it was handwritten on a piece of paper, and you just couldn't read whether 11 was 77 or 17 or was it 11. There was coffee stains on them, there was always a problem. So I know the benefits of being able to enter timesheets digitally into a software that then integrates with the accounting software, which we'll kind of get to a little bit later, but the whole flow of it and the bigger picture, I know how much time it's going to save. Human error is not a problem anymore, and it just kind of goes straight through. And it can be amended and locked down. There's an audit trail, there's GPSs, especially for the tradies who are on site. We can GPS track them when they start their job. So all of that stuff makes a massive difference. I know personally for the bookkeeper and possibly potentially for the tradie as well, it's going to help out. So yeah. It's definitely a favorite.
I've had a scenario where I've opened up my friend's ute door and their timesheets blew down the road, meant to run down there and grab them. So it's real.
Okay.
It does
I need next minute.
So yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've got jobs underway. It's planned. Everyone knows what they're doing. The team are now have their schedule. They're timesheeting appropriately, which is great. So what I want to talk now is about bills. Everyone basically hates bills, but they're really important, and particularly in this industry, because A, this is how they understand what their costs are on the job, or if they're doing a charge-up job, this is how they actually make additional money by marking up these bills on the way through. Now with Next Minute, there's two different approaches, and it really depends on some of the connected systems you may be using. The beauty is you can evolve from one to the other if someone starts to use one of the other systems, which I'll touch on. So you can come into Next Minute, and against the job, you can allocate a supplier bill that then associates that cost directly to that job. That bill is then created against the job as well. And you can mark up those costs. So they're now sitting there as unbilled costs that you are ready to invoice at any point in time. You can then take this bill and then sync it directly through into your accounting package, whether that's Xero or MYOB. Therefore, there's no duplication of effort. Benefit now being that all your job costs are all housed up in Next Minute. You've got your bill sitting across in Xero, ready to be paid. You can then sync those payment transactions back into Next Minute, so you can see at any point in time all the supplier invoices or bills and which ones have been paid and which ones haven't been paid. So that's one method, which is that enter them in Next Minute and sync them through. The other method is my favored method, and that is basically utilizing the fact that bills can quite easily get pushed into Xero or MYOB using extractor type software, or you can email them in. What that means is all of your bills are accrued up inside Xero or MYOB, and then what Next Minute does is via our integration, we connect in and we pull those bills across into Next Minute. You can then go through and systematically assign them to the different jobs that they relate to, mark them up on the way through, import them. And that is literally going to pull through that bill, create it in Next Minute, associate it to the job. If there was a PDF invoice or bill file sitting with that, that's going to come through as well. So therefore, all of my costs are getting accrued up very, very quickly and easily with no data entry on the Next Minute side. So the real key with this is that we're leveraging a lot of those common processes which are in place. So I've got a bit of a diagram here just to kind of put that into context. So there's Xero MYOB sitting in the middle. That's kind of like, you know, the general ledger of what's going on. Now external to that, you can have, you know, the likes of Receipt Bank or Dext or HubDoc, which is basically able to pull through those bills and get them inside neatly and quickly inside Xero MYOB. So then Next Minute can literally pull across those bills, and those can get accrued up against the jobs as I talked about. On top of that, we can pull through contacts, suppliers that are housed inside Xero MYOB. We can generate invoices inside Next Minute and sync those through into Xero MYOB. And then lastly, with those timesheets that we touched on, those can get pushed back through into payroll within those two systems as well. So the key thing here, and I sort of touched on this at the start, is we want to be neatly connected in with these other business processes, because we just want to add value or leverage what's going on so that we can ultimately make these guys' lives easier. Okay, so that's sort of wrapping up now. So I've now got all my work underway, I've quoted it, my timesheets are coming in, all my bills and costs are getting accrued up quickly and easily. So basically the grunt work's been done just by virtue of kind of doing that doing. Okay, so there's not a whole, well, there's very little intervention along the way. It's just the collection of that data has been done in a seamless manner. So when it comes time to invoicing, there's kind of two major methods to this. There's the charge up and then the fixed price. So with fixed price, there will be a set of progress payments that you want to issue out over time. And so that's really simple. You can go in and generate your invoices as you need into the future if you want, and then simply send them out and sync them back through. So the generation of the invoices is really straightforward, but the key thing is with fixed price jobs is understanding what your total costs were. Because if you don't know those, you don't know your profit. And if you don't know your profit, you know, how do you know if you're making any money? So by those other processes coming in with your timesheets and your bills, when I'm issuing out my invoices, I'm going to start to see what my running profitability is on that fixed price job. If you're running charge up jobs, that's all about getting those timesheet and labor components through quickly into the base of your invoice, as well as all of your key supplier invoices that have been marked up along the way. So again, we've actually already got all those ingredients. They come through, they sit inside your draft invoice, you make any amendments you want and basically send them off, mark all those others as billed, and then you can then see what your profitability is across all of those costs that have been marked up along the way. And of course, sync it straight through into Xero MYOB, so everything's all neat and tidy. So Emily, obviously putting all this thing together, there's one last aspect, and I guess the finale of what we're kind of in this for.
Yeah, and I think it really plays back to what you were saying earlier, where tradies love to go and do the work. That's why they got into the job that they're doing, but they're probably not the best at understanding profitability of their company, or how the jobs are performing. So all of this stuff that Dave has just shown you wraps up into a really neat financial report. So alongside all the other reports that you're probably already doing for your clients, whether it be management reports every month, or their BAS reports every quarter. This is one that can go alongside that as well, and just capture kind of the profitability and the performance of how the job's going. We've just had a question come through. Does the supplier invoices go out when you invoice your client as an attachment?
So you can send them out. So we've got examples where customers may have a large component of that particular invoice that goes out relates to a big materials bill. So you can, when that bill comes across, get that file and attach it to the invoice and send it all out, along with any other file you want to attach to that invoice. We've got customers who put photos, like if the roof's just gone on, as part of the invoice that goes out. So short answer is, yeah, you can attach the bill to the invoice that goes out, along with any other attachments that you see fit, so that it's all wrapped up in one email. Great question.
Great. Yeah, so then the next part would be the timesheets to payroll. So as I kind of jumped the gun a little bit earlier before, the timesheets do directly go back into your Xero or MYOB account, so that they can be picked up in the payroll cycle. There's no approval process as such. You would just assume that once the timesheets have been synced across into the accounting software, they are approved by the business owner. So for some people, that's kind of removing a couple of steps in the process as well. And then it's just there ready to go for you guys whenever the time comes.
Yeah, and with that as well, at the point when you sync them across from Next Minute into your payroll system, it automatically locks everything on the timesheet side, so no one can go and touch anything. So that's just a nice bit of hygiene that's just going to automatically happen as part of that process.
Yeah. Dave, we've had another question come through.
Yes.
Is there any functionality where the material bills is automatically allocated to the job using a job number, or do they all have to be manually allocated?
They aren't automatically allocated. What happens is the job number will come through as part of it, and you just simply add them in as you go. We are looking, and this is just a future enhancement, to use tracking categories out of Xero in that case. So MYOB supplies the a job code that we can use that for quick reference. Tracking categories will allow us to step towards getting more automated, because you need a hard and fast rule to associate it. So that's the next phase of what we're looking at as part of that piece there. So not yet, but it's very clear and easy when you go down the list that you can see which ones it is. And we've got the ability to filter those bills too based on a certain supplier or a job code anyway. But really good question, and it is definitely something that we're looking at, which is the pulling through of tracking categories from Xero as part of that bills import.
Great. So a couple of weeks ago, Dave and I had a really interesting meeting with a bookkeeper, and one of the situations that came out, actually she had lots of quotes that came out of it, but I think when we tried to narrow it down to just one, the one that stood out was, why isn't there just one software that can do it all? So the background story was this bookkeeper had met with a client a couple of days earlier, and he was using his accounting software. So he was using Xero, and I believe it was Dext as well for the kind of the document management. And then he was also using another job management system that didn't allow for timesheets. So then on top of that, he also had a system that captured timesheets with his staff. So he had 4 different softwares, and as some of you are probably aware, tradies aren't always the most tech savvy. They kind of just don't get it sometimes because they like being out and about, they like using their hands, and it's just not kind of built into their nature. So the client had said to the bookkeeper, I just don't understand why I've got to use so many softwares. Surely there's something out there that can do a bit of everything, and I'm not having to use 4 different softwares all at once. And the bookkeeper 2 days later found NextMinute and started to realize with the integrations, it probably could reduce some of the software that he was using. So we had a conversation with her, met, demoed the product, and she was like, yeah, it's ticking all the boxes. I think this client's going to be perfect for NextMinute. When we worked it out, that meant that the client was able to get rid of their timesheeting system because they would then be able to do that within NextMinute. And then obviously NextMinute would just replace the existing software that they were using. So it went from 4 to 3, which for a tradie can be a really big deal when they're not so used to using software or being in apps all the time. But the biggest thing that came out of that was actually reduce the subscription cost by about $300 a month. It was a very rough estimate that we came up with, but we're pretty sure that the subscription cost has gone down from $500 a month to about $200 a month, which is a huge time saving, money saving, everything saving for this client. So it was a really good success story. And that's not the only one. We hear lots of these kind of real clients, real stories all the time. But yeah, it just kind of goes to show when you do your research, you don't know what you're going to come up with.
I guess the other part to this, and this is one of the parts of this webinar, is it's about just getting out who we are and what we do. The fact that she didn't know or hadn't heard of NextMinute prior to that, and that's again what we're really keen to get everyone to understand is it's about understanding what we do, what we don't do, and what we do, and how we connect them with these other applications, because that's the key stuff. So look, I'm going to just do, which is the worst case scenario that I've been told when you're doing webinars, is don't do a live demo. But I figured I'm going to do this because I want to show you some of this stuff. And I think that's really important. There's one thing to have a few slides, but I want to sort of give you a very brief overview of some of these key things that I've talked about so you can kind of see it moving. And once we wrap this up, we're really keen to get some of your input and give you a more detailed run through just by getting in contact with us. But I'll jump in here now and I'll do my best to run a live demo. So is that showing up for you, Emily?
Yep, that's loading the login screen.
Yeah.
We're in.
Okay, so look, this is an interface. I've come in here as an administrator, and what I'm going to do is just give you a very brief overview of some of those key things that we talked about. So firstly, everything starts and ends with this concept of a job. I know that sounds really obvious, but the way we view it is once you have a job, everything else can hang off it. So when you want to start the process of creating a new job, you can either use templates, which are a really nice way to get a standardized approach to your new jobs as they come in, or you can just add a standard new blank job. The point is once you've got your job in here, you've then got the ability to start to hang off all this other really key information, so it's always accessible and at your fingertips as the business owner, or if you're one of the workers on site, you can get what you need when you need it. Again, it sounds really simple, but just having the key linked contacts associated with the job. So this could be someone who's the manager of the site, it could be the architect, it could be the engineer, having those all in one spot. You can have photos, notes, scribbles, files, having those key documents at your fingertips. It's often people are running around from site to site and you need the plans or the updated plans. It's a really quick and easy way for someone on their phone to get access to the files that they need for that particular job. And housing that all in one spot makes life a little bit easier. So those are some of the, I guess, those hygiene factors that we talk about, or the basics. And then you can come in here and you can assign your team to the job. Obviously, they can see where the job is. They can know on and get on with that particular job, which is actually doing the doing. We talked about quotes, and I think this concept of building your quote is really important. But along the way, you can also create, variations as you go. The key thing is that you can template your quotes so that when you create them, they can have different standardized sections and layouts depending on the nature of the job, whether it's a big new build, small renovation, or something like just simply laying out a deck. So you can come in here, have one or many sections, and ultimately you choose as how much detail you want to send out to the client so that you can win the work. And at the point of issuing it, you know exactly what your margin is and your dollar profit at the point when you send it off. So that's really, really simple way to do that. The other parts of this, just very quickly, if you need to, you can also turn a quote into a job, or you can generate invoices directly from the quote as well. So just a few really neat features in there just to make life easy. So having all of that in one spot, that all racks up against that singular job. So I now know what my total costs are, what my total revenue is before I even start. I then talked about that concept of building out a plan or planning for success. You can take your job and you can break it down into its subsequent tasks, and then you can assign it to the different people in your team, and also understand which tasks are done and which tasks are still underway. So you can build those out on the fly, assign your team to them, and then they can get notification of that particular task that they need to work on. The other piece with these tasks, sorry, I'll just go back to that quickly, is then when it comes time to timesheeting, you can get the team to come in and force them down to timesheet down at this task level. So that's a choice. You can either timesheet at the job level or the task level. And what that means is you start to get more granularity and understanding of where these costs are getting burnt across this job. So not just at the job level as, am I winning on the foundations piece? I allowed 10 grand in labor. Where am I at right now? So that's a really, really important part of what we do, which gives you that granularity. The other piece was getting that bird's eye view of all of my jobs and how are they going, which ones are related to which, do I need to shift anything out? So it's a very easy interface. You can come in here and create dependencies on the fly. You can shift elements out and that's going to kick them off. You can open up your tasks. You can see who's scheduled to them. You can amend the statuses. You can kind of work from this top-down interface across all of your jobs, obviously if you've got permission to see them. So it's a really effective way to give that bird's eye view of those moving parts on all of the different jobs that you've got, and understand the kick-on effect. When I shift one task, what does it do to all the subsequent tasks? The next piece is, so everybody's got their jobs, they're assigned to their tasks. It's really around coming in to do your timesheets. And I'm actually like Emily, I think timesheeting is just a critical piece. It's critical to understand, and I think for business owners, before they've even won the job, and this is why I'm a big fan of getting those jobs in before you even start doing your quote, is before you've even started your quote, and during building that quote, you are consuming time and effort and sometimes materials. Those things need to be recorded against that job, otherwise you actually don't know what your true profitability is. So timesheets are so simple. Guys can come in and do it on their job, on their phones. There's a start-stop timer. You can timesheet in period or duration. Simply about coming in here, choosing the job that you're on. In this case here, this one's going to cascade me down to say which part of that job or which task did I work on. So again, that's giving me granularity. And then I can say I was doing framing outside. It's going to capture the note, how much time I spent. In this case here, I did 7 hours save. So I've now captured all the time for me as an individual. So that's going to feed through into payroll. But more importantly, my time times my costs has been associated to all the different jobs I've been timesheeting on, which then builds up as charges that I need to bill off for charge up work, or it builds up as costs that I need to be able to look at and back cost against my fixed price jobs. So it's all getting racked up into that one area. Now from the bills perspective, as I mentioned, you can enter them manually yourself and then sync them through into Xero. But I thought I'd just quickly show you how the bills import works. So I've got this one integrated into Xero. So that's a one-off. Once you're integrated, you're done. I simply select on Xero. It's going to return me all the bills that are set up for a given period that I've got up here. I can choose to come through here and hide certain bills. So if those are, like phone bills or fuel that don't relate to a specific job, I can just hide them off. I can see any key information up in here. I can even select the bill to view it. If it had a file, I would see the file next to it. So it's a simple matter of selecting the bill, opening this up and going, oh, that job belongs to, that bill belongs to a certain job. You simply pick the job that it relates to. In this case here, it's for sleep out. It's there, and then all you do is you go import, and that's going to then pull through all of those bills that I've selected on that particular moment to go through. It's going to remove them from that list. It's going to create them in next minute. It's going to assign them to those jobs with those costs, and it's going to mark it up automatically. So this is just a case of just going through and, it's like reconciling bank statements in Xero. You just go and do this every couple of days, stay on top of it. By the time it comes to the end of 2 weeks or a month, whatever your billing cycle is, everything's already there and ready to go. And that's really how this stuff all fits together, is we're just reusing this information that's getting piped in there already. So then I can come to all of my jobs, I can see the unbilled amounts, I can open it up, and from here I can very quickly and easily generate an invoice, either directly from those charges, if I'm doing cost plus, or I could go in and I could generate an invoice and basically reconcile those. So you can see all of those supplier invoices have come through. I can even open it up and view the details of what came through. So I can generate an invoice from all those charges, which is a combination of bills and timesheets, or I can just simply come in here and create invoices as progress payments, say stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then all I do is I open them, send them to the customer, sync them through to Xero.
Dave, just while we're on the invoices, there's been a question come through. Will Xero or MYOB tell next minute when an invoice is paid?
Yeah, so with the invoices piece here, you can go and sync the transactions, and that will pull through all of those transactions, which will then update every invoice that you've got, and it's going to denote whether it's been paid or not, and it's going to actually have the amount. So yes. And the same goes for the bills. If you're creating bills inside Next Minute and syncing them through to Xero, once they're paid, it'll pull back inside Xero as well. Oh, sorry, Next Minute as well. Yeah, really good question. So pulling that all together, got our job, we've built out our tasks, we've assigned everyone out, we've got our quote, that's been accepted, we're doing the doing. So then I can come in here and open this and see what are my total estimated costs, what's my total estimated revenue. So those are based off my quote that I've produced. Then as time goes by, I have charges start coming in. So I've got my labor components start adding up, my costs. All the materials that I've been pulling in as bills or adding in, they're adding up as well. So I'm seeing what my actual costs are. I can then see what I've invoiced, what's unbilled to still be invoiced, and then what's left to invoice from the total price pool. And then at any point in time, I can see what my profit is right now. Now, I would hazard a guess, if you went out there and you lined up 10 tradies and you said, tell me the job that you're currently working on at the moment, what's your current profitability on it? I think you would get an and then hear some crickets chirping and tumbleweed roll by, because they will not know. I reckon 9 out of the 10. And I guess the point is, it doesn't have to be that hard. Reflecting back on those things that I talked about at the start, they're really good at adopting technology. They are. So it's just about helping them understand that this is no different. It's just another tool for their tool belt. And the benefit is you basically get to make more money and actually reduce some of that admin burden that they actually hate. Just remove it. So anything that we can do on that front is very helpful. Right, so I'm going to return back to the presentation. Close that down. Right, across to you, Emily.
Great. So I guess from here, now that you understand kind of what the product is capable of doing, you probably need to know who it's right for. So it was built for pretty much all trades, builders, plumbers, electricians, painters, landscapers. I've got a signage client at the moment. Pretty much anyone who has jobs that need to be managed can probably make Next Minute work for them. Up to 50 employees is probably the recommended amount. Um, and then anyone who's looking to kind of grow their business or elevate their processes that are currently in place. If you can think of, a couple of clients who either don't have a job management system or have one but they're not using it very well, they would be your kind of ideal clients because it will help them take their business to the next level. So I guess that's
Yeah,
who it's made for.
yeah, and that's a really key piece is um, it's about trying to help these businesses shore themselves up. It's been a pretty uncertain 12 months, and making sure that everyone's got their house in order for the next wave. I mean, I know in New Zealand and Australia, the building and trade industry is absolutely firing, it's booming. So it's a good time for them to be able to take on more work, but you need the right systems and processes in place to do it. And therefore that's going to allow them to not grow too quick and fall over, which can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that really leads into what my role is with Next Minute. So we do have a partner program, as you can see on the screen. And my role as a partner manager is to work directly with the bookkeepers, accountants, advisors, anyone who's kind of sitting behind the scenes of the trades, but assisting them to keep their business afloat and to keep them growing. I'm here to help you guys because I understand from my experience working in the industry that sometimes you will be really heavily involved in it, especially with software implementation or process changes. Sometimes you're really, really heavily involved. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're just guiding from the sidelines, but you still need someone to support you. So that's my role as the dedicated partner manager. Also with the partner program, you get training and support. So we will make sure that you guys are trained up and you know how to use the product. Any questions that you have, you've got someone to kind of go to and ask those of, and then feed back to your clients. We will help your clients kind of as much or as little as you want. We understand, as I said, that sometimes you will do all the work, but sometimes you just want to let the clients do the work and you guide them. So we will let you kind of run the show, but we'll be here to support you when the time comes and if the time comes. And then also your clients will get the same support, but from kind of a different part of the business at Next Minute. And the third point there is you do get a free demo subscription. So I know a lot of other softwares, this is a really common question, is can we get in, can we kind of get our hands dirty and learn how to use the product? So we give you what I call a sandbox account, which becomes kind of a free subscription for you guys to log into and use it for staying up to date on content. If you need to demo to a client or show them Next Minute, you've got somewhere that you can go and do that. And it's completely free for you guys to use that. So I guess that's the wrap up of the partner program. There is also a 10% rebate I should mention as well, but we can pick that up separately if anyone is interested in learning more about it or becoming a partner. For next steps, all you need to do is go and sign up for your free sandbox account. So essentially just go onto the Next Minute website, just nextminute.com, sign up for a free trial. We will then be in touch with you to, help out with whatever you need in that trial process, but we'll convert that across to a free subscription. Dave and myself would love to have a demo with anyone who is interested. We'd love to run you through, any specific examples that you might have for any clients. And as we've been going through, I've been monitoring the questions as we go through, and there is a couple more that we'll wrap up at the end. But I assume for everyone asking questions, it means that you have identified a client already that this could be useful for. So if you have already thought about a client that Next Minute could tick some of the boxes for, we can run through that in the demo. But then go and talk to your client about them and see what their kind of stage is and if they're interested in learning more about it. Because again, we'd love to meet with your clients and present the product to them if you're not really comfortable doing that as well, because we will be here to support you guys as much as we can.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point, is that we're here to work alongside you. They're your clients, they're the people that you've got these deep relationships with. and obviously you care about them being successful, and as we do too. So we can help as little or as much as you want. What you'll find is it is really easy to pick up and run with. Having those connections through into Xero and MYOB just makes life so simple. You're not trying to sort of reinvent the wheel. You're just basically plugging in and utilizing all the work you've done before. So look, from Next Minute, I really thank you for coming along and joining in, and I do really encourage you to go in and at least book a demo or start a free account. It's a really good way to learn about it. We're really keen to show you more. Obviously in a webinar, I can't go into all the detail, but that's why I wanted to give you a little taster across the top. So if you've got some questions, just get in contact, big or small, and we'll spend as much time as you need to get you up to speed. So for myself, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I'm actually relatively new to these webinars, so I'm hoping that it's gone okay. And thank you, Emily, for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks,
and I hope,
Dave.
And we'll hear from some of these attendees soon. So thanks so much.
Yeah, cool. I might just stay on the line for a bit longer and answer any questions. If anyone has any more that they want to send through, I can stick around for a few more minutes. Otherwise, if you're kind of ready and you've heard enough, feel free to jump off. But Dave, I'll run through some of these questions if